Hey everyone, Mike Wolf here. Thank you so much for tuning in to Entrepreneurs Making a Difference, where we interview entrepreneurs from all over the world in an effort to connect them all so they can do great things. And so we have a guest today named Larry Williams. I'm going to read his bio here. Larry is an author, speaker, and member of the National Speakers Association. He's a former radio broadcaster and owner of a successful entertainment company in Reno, Nevada. He's authored 3 books on the topics of small business, management, customer service, and personal development. He's passionate about bringing traditional standards of ethics and business into modern focus for a new generation. His latest book is called Develop Your B-Sides. It shares an amazing musical story that was the best kept secret in the music industry. It offers a powerful methodology that will enhance your personal and professional development. So welcome to the show, Larry.
Hey, thank you, Mike, for having me. I appreciate it. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. So tell me more about the B-sides concept. I'm old enough to remember those 45 over, and so I actually know what that means. Probably a lot of people listening don't have a clue what that means, so I'll let you explain that.
It's from an era, of course, long since past, the B-side, the vinyl revolution, that really started back around the 50s. It really started gaining speed with the 45 RPM record. And what had happened for me is I was in radio. I was a radio DJ for years, and I stumbled upon this in my radio booth, the confines of the 6x8 foot booth. I basically stumbled upon something with regard to the B-side records that was just extraordinary, and it's a story that's never been told. So the B-sides, as we all know, and I can kind of lay it all out here for you. The B-side record was, by all accounts, the filler. It's the song that they had to put something on the flip side of these A-side hit single records. Now, the vinyl record in and of itself was is the biggest selling product in the history of music. Nothing that ever has come before or since has sold more than the vinyl record. Billions of units sold, and of course, gazillions of dollars made. And this is how they promoted their artists, through vinyl records, 45s and LPs. But what had happened is the A-side record was the one that the radio DJs would play on the air. That was the hit. That was the one that the record executives really pushed and put all their muscle behind to promote their artists. If you have 1 or 2 hit A-side singles that are released from an album, it'll sell, millions of albums, and hence really kick off the career and in some cases expand the career of recording artists. But the B-side record was a kind of an interesting thing that was going on that they had to really think about, is what do we do with the B-side? We got to put something on the flip side of a 45 RPM record. And as I was in my radio booth just thumbing through 45s one day, I'm stumbling upon things like I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor and Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. I'm thinking, why is this on the B-side? I mean, these are like huge hits. And I had to really investigate and really look into this more, kind of be the guy who would, search out the clues, as it were, to kind of find out why. Now, we didn't have Google back then in the early 90s or the internet to really investigate this, so I had to talk to a lot of radio friends of mine and really kind of dive into this myself. And what I found out was the B-side record was the filler. They had to put something there that would be used as a lure. The radio DJ plays the hit record. The listener or record buyer hears it. They run to the record store. They buy that 45 with that hit on the A side. On the B side, it's not going to be another hit because they're going to save that for a future 45 release. But they got to put something there that's at least kind of good, because it's used as a lure to lure people in to buy more music. Makes sense. If a record buyer comes home, listens to that record, and they play it on their turntable probably 10 or 15 times. If you did as a kid, I did the same thing. I played it time and time again. They know eventually they're going to flip over that B-side and listen to it. If they kind of like it a little bit, then the record buyer is saying, I like 2 songs now. There's only 10 songs in the full-length LP. Maybe I'll just go out and buy the album. That's what its purpose was. So they would put filler songs on there, maybe outtakes or a live song, maybe a comedy or a parody song. They would put something on there that would entice the listener to listen more and buy maybe another record. Then they might buy more records from a different artist on the same label. They might buy concert tickets or merchandising. It helps to create a fan. The process of creating a fan is in place when they like the B-side record. Well, the thing that happened that was interesting, that didn't happen, for quite a while in the listener's eyes, was the idea that, if the B-side became a bigger hit than the A-side, what is it to do? And that's what happened with songs like Unchained Melody. The song on the A side was Hung on You. Now, Phil Spector, which always kind of just brings a chuckle to most people, Phil Spector had a very interesting idea for his B-sides. He wanted them to be the worst pile of garbage ever because he didn't want radio DJs to focus on the B-sides at all. So he didn't even want to put a nice sounding filler on there. He just wanted a terrible song to begin with. So the follow-up to his song when he was with the Righteous Brothers and producing them, the You've Lost That Love and Feeling was the hit. The follow-up to that was going to be a song called Hung on You. Hung on You got to the radio stations and it tanked. But radio DJs in queue, off air, started listening to the B-side, which was a song called Unchained Melody. Now, Les Baxter had a hit with that back 10 years before in 1955. And radio DJs saying, hey, I remember when that hit was #1 for Les Baxter. Let's see what the Righteous Brothers are doing with it. They listened to this thing, the vocals by Bobby Hatfield, that absolutely soared, and they said, this is a monster hit. Radio DJs started playing it, and that song started shooting up the charts. Next thing you know, Hung on You was nowhere to be found, and Unchained Melody was a huge hit. The same thing happened time and time again with I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. Coincidentally, the A-side was a song called Substitute. That got substituted for I Will Survive, which has become an anthem for women, and it's just a huge dance club hit for years. It stood the test of time. Rock Around the Clock. Remember the song that started rock and roll? That song sold 250 million 45 RPM records. It was the B-side to an A-side. Yeah. The A-side was 13 women and only one man in town. And it was only discovered when it was played as part of credits of a movie. And then radio DJs started listening to it, and it became popular in that movie. Next thing you know, Rock Around the Clock is the song that quintessentially is like the anthem that started rock and roll. It's stood at #1 for 8 weeks on the Billboard charts. And these B-sides were just popping up all over the place.
Wow, that's fascinating. I would have never known that. That's I mean, your book is called "Develop Your B-Sides," and it's a musical journey. And obviously, you have I can tell by watching you light up, you have a big passion for music. Have you always had that passion?
I have. It dates back to when I was a young kid. Now, when I was young, my parents, they were a little late to the rock and roll party. They they actually weaned me on Sinatra and Dean Martin and stuff like that. I was born in '59, so I didn't grow up with the Beatles and Beach Boys right away. I was more raised on the standards and this sort of thing. So I remember putting the nickel in the jukebox and hanging out with my folks listening to standards. Swing music and that sort of thing, and a little bit of doo-wop as well. But of course, they bought me my first accordion when I was 9 years old. And what's that?
Are you gonna play for us?
Oh no! I don't know anything about going pa anymore. But yeah, we were watching Lawrence Welk, and we did all that. So music was always a part of my life. But by the time I became a teenager, I ditched the accordion and picked up a guitar, and I wanted to be a rock star. And my goal throughout all my the 70s and into the 80s was to be a rock and roll guitar player. And I had bands down in the LA area back when the big LA signing thing was really big. Open shows for the likes of Quiet Riot and Rat and Great White. And a lot of these bands, I basically saw all my friends get signed, but me. So I'm kind of, my hairline is going up a little bit now, so I don't have the long, the curly hair like I used to have. And but
hard to get into hair bands like that, isn't it?
What's that?
Hard to get into those hair bands.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be in a hair band when you're going bald. So.
Won't let me either, so don't feel bad.
But what happened was the love of music always stayed with me. My favorite job of all time, and I know everybody out there's got jobs they probably look back and regret, and some jobs they look back and say, gosh, I wish I was doing that again. My favorite job of all time was working in a record store. I worked in a place called Licorice Pizza Records and Tapes. It's a small chain down in Southern California, and if you can picture it, licorice, meaning black, and pizza platter, that's an LP. They called it Licorice Pizza Records and Tapes, and I worked there, and I still fondly look back on that as my favorite job of all time. It just grew the love of vinyl, the love of music, and I got to tell you, Mike, the people these days, the kids these days, I feel there's a lot of things that they're missing out on, and I'm real passionate about this. Music today, new music, has a very short shelf life. Hit is pretty much gone or done within a few months sometimes, maybe a year or two, and you don't hear of that song again. And I think a lot of that boils down to, in the old days, we would go to a record store. We would invest the time looking through the LPs, checking out the album art, talking to the sales associates, talking to complete strangers about the latest album from Elton John or the latest album, from Quiet Riot or whatever the case might be. And we would talk and have conversation. We would invest ourselves in learning about that, looking at the liner notes, taking it home, breaking the seal on it, putting that platter on a disc player, and gently putting the needle on because we don't want to scratch our brand new record that we just paid for. Nowadays, everything's such a quick download. There's no time invested. There's no real financial commitment either. And those days they're gone, and it's such a crying shame. But that's kind of where I come from musically. And then of course I became a radio DJ, and the music thing has never left me. And then I discovered this, back in the early 90s. I've basically been sitting on this develop your B-sides concept for the better part of 20 years.
Wow, and what inspired you to do the, how'd you come up with this idea for develop your B-sides? 'Cause it sounds really fascinating. Obviously, you have this huge passion for music, but what made you decide to turn that into, take that in a different direction?
People were really looking at me funny. I'll give you some examples. Back in the 90s when I was a radio DJ, I would do things for my own. I started an entertainment company, so I would do things my own company, managerial-wise, and sometimes production-wise or whatever. And people would say, "How did you do that? How were you able to, create that production element, or how are you able to create that signature piece?" I said, "I was just B-siding it." And people are looking at me, they're, "Well, what do you mean B-siding it?" It was more of an industry term than a general term that the public knew. Now, for 20 years, I've been B-siding everything in my life, and what I mean by B-siding is taking something that's on your lower shelf, something that's on your flip side, turning it over, dusting it off, and giving it an opportunity to succeed. That's what happened with these records, these hits like "I Will Survive." Tequila, one of the biggest songs of all time, was a B-side, and these people that were writing these songs never invested less time into the B-side. It was the record companies that said, "That's not good enough, let's put it on the flip side." But when radio DJs, when somebody paid attention to it and gave it a chance to succeed, it became something. So I encourage everybody that the people I talk to, and when I talk about developing your B-side, that means developing the things in your life. It could be anything. Things in your life from a managerial standpoint. It could be things that are your best practices, customer service. It could be managerial. It could be business related. It could be personal, hobbies, and things that you can bring more to the forefront, polish them up, work on them, and introduce them or reintroduce them to the world. And that's what B-siding is. So I decided to come out with this and really share it with the world, because I've been doing it for 20 years. I live by the example of what I talk to people about. And this B-siding stuff is remarkable. You could take anything, maybe much like your podcast show here that you're doing, and you're really pouring yourself into it. You're working it, you're developing it, you're going to take it to the stars because you really believe passionately in it, and basically you're B-siding it. This may have been a thought for your show months ago or years ago, and now you're really working it. That's B-siding. It's just a new modern day equivalent of taking something and making it better.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I think it's great, and it's something when I was first reading your bio, I didn't know, well, where's he going with this. But
most people don't.
Cool. So that's great stuff. So are B-sides still used today? I mean, now we got CDs, we got MP3s, and the iTunes Store. Do people even know what B-sides are anymore?
Here's the thing. People don't really understand a whole lot about the vinyl, and they certainly don't understand the marketing concept of the way B-sides were used by the radio executive. I hope my book helps to enlighten people on that and kind of change some thoughts and ideas. But yes, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, is B-side, the concept, the idea of using a lure to get people to buy more music is used all the time. That comes directly from the vinyl record. Like I said, the vinyl record, the radio record executives decided we got to get something on that B-side to lure customers in so they'll buy more product. That's why it sold billions and billions of units. Back when CDs were replacing vinyl, everybody remembers when CDs came along and replaced vinyl, they had CD singles. That was no mistake that they called it a single. They called it a single because they wanted to put something on there so you would buy the rest of the album. With CD singles, they could put more things. They could put 5 different alternate tracks or a live track or whatever to get you to buy the album. It continued with music videos. They didn't just play music and show to few people dancing, playing the music. Then they started acting, and they do that to this day. They act and show a different dimension of themselves that gets you more interested in the artist, so you'll consider going to their concert or buying some more CD downloads, or internet downloads, wherever the case might be. You see retros or remixes. You have a new song from Britney Spears that comes out. There's 5 or 10 different DJs or production companies that are remixing that track for nightclubs. Remixing and having several different versions of an initial track is another lure to get you to love that track, buy their full-length CD or album or album download, or go to their concerts. So yeah, it's the same thing in every type of facet you see in the music industry, even with free internet downloads. Buy the album, you'll get a special song that is not available on iTunes. You can only get it through the album sale or the album download, or you get free credit for another download or something like that. These are all lures to get you to buy more product, to get you to like the artist more, and those lures come directly from the vinyl record and the B-side methodology that the record industry used, more than 30 years ago.
Well, it's kind of funny because now, I mean, obviously, at one point they went from the vinyl, and then they were trying to sell us the CDs, and now they're going back to vinyl's making a comeback.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I read somewhere that 2012 sold more vinyl records than any time in the previous 20 years. So it definitely, it's definitely making a comeback. Now, I don't know if it'll make a complete comeback, but there's just something about, like I said, the investment of time to really, I mean, gosh, the album art alone, if you look at a Journey album or a Boston album, who can forget that stuff? The album art alone, it's non-existent anymore. And the idea of, going out and investing yourself time-wise and money-wise to get this music and bring it home, is something I think everybody's missing today, especially those that don't know what they're missing.
Yeah, well, I remember I used to spend tons of time at the record stores and be so excited to come home and you couldn't wait to play. And then it would be warped and you'd have to go back to the record store.
Yeah, that was frustrating, but it was still worth it. It was still worth every. I still spend time in record stores. Yeah, we have one called Recycled Records out here in Reno, and man, I could spend all day in there. It's just such a great time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun. It was definitely a fun experience, and like you said, I mean, you got the big. I mean, there's that artwork, and then you go inside. There usually be the lyrics, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, like I said, I encourage everybody to think of your life like a song. When we go out there and when we wake up in the morning and step out to take the kids to school or go off to our jobs or whatever thing, we have an opportunity to create something. Everything in your life is basically, we all relate to music. It's the universal language. So when you look at artists, they have to always create. They have to always be innovative. They have to come up with the next big thing, and they always have to think ahead of the curve to see what's coming. And that's what we need to do in life. So if you think of your life like a song or like a B-side, it's just a matter of always adapting and recreating different things in your personal and professional development. And that's what B-siding is. It's basically just looking at your life like a song and understanding songwriters have to always continually reinvest their time, reinvent themselves with new music. You got to do that in your life too.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept. So, do you want to share with us some of your B-sides? Do you have?
I got many. I got plenty. Well, like I said, I did a lot of things managerial-wise for my business. I did signature pieces that people come to me now and say, "We want you or your entertainment company because you guys specialize in this. You do this, and you do it better than anybody on the planet." I've got signature pieces like that. But my favorite B-sides, by far, are the ones I've done within my community. The ones that really touched some lives and helped others. I'll take you back to 1991. I was a radio DJ, and part of my duties, besides playing music and commercials and reading the weather, was also doing the newscasts and reading portions of the newscast. And a story came in on June 11th that I'll never forget. It was the story of a little girl who was kidnapped up at South Lake Tahoe, and she was taken, grabbed and thrown into a car, okay, just feet away from the bus stop. She's an 11-year-old girl. Her dad witnessed the whole thing down the street in his garage, heard her scream. Car and person came out, grabbed the little girl, threw her in there, and drove away. He's calling 911. Huge search effort goes on. They can't find the missing girl. Pink ribbons were everywhere. Her face was in every storefront going. I was reporting on this on the updates day after day after day. Months went by. They still no word of the little girl. And this girl was literally 11 years old, walking to her school bus stop and kidnapped. And I'm thinking, how can this happen? All of us were just in shock, and everybody was trying to pitch in and do something, do what they could. By about November here in Reno, that's when the snow starts settling in, and I was an avid skier at the time. I was up at the ski resorts up at Kirkwood, and I was up on the chairlifts, and now, mind you, I was a radio DJ at this point. I had long given up my aspirations to be in a heavy metal rock and roll band, left all that stuff behind, and I was content being a radio DJ. Had this melody going through my head with the words, soon the tears of joy will rain and we'll fulfill our dreams. And it just kept going. I knew what was happening. It was that uncontrollable urge to want to write a song. I'm thinking, no, I'm not a songwriter no more. I'm a DJ. And it just started developing. I got home that day and jotted some of the words down, kind of left it alone. A few days later, it just starts reappearing, more words and more melody. I'm writing them down, thinking, no, I can't. I don't write songs anymore. Well, by this time, it's close to December, and it was really weighing on me heavy that, this family of this little girl is going to spend their first Christmas without their daughter. And I decided to write the song. So I went ahead and wrote this song. I'm thinking, now what do I do? It's like, all right, I guess I got to present it to the family somehow. So I contacted the family and told them that I wrote a song for their little girl, and they were touched beyond belief. They were just so appreciative, and it just warmed their hearts, and I could feel it, and I felt it. It was nice. Christmas was great, not obviously as great for them, but I felt good. I've done something really nice, and that was a little bit of a B-side, but this is where the whole B-side mentality kicked in more for me. It's like, I can do more. I can do more. So I worked some connections that I had in the music business to enlist the efforts of the best recording studio in Reno to donate their time. I found a band that played in the casinos up here called Perfect Circle, a fabulous band that played all the clubs up here. I asked them.
Perfect Circle that's still around today?
No, a totally different Perfect Circle. It's not that Perfect Circle.
I can't picture those guys playing in a casino. That's all.
No. This is totally different. I think these guys were around first though. But that was back in 1991, going into 1992, and I asked them if they would record the song in this recording studio. So this is B-siding. This is taking it to the next level, coming up with that next dream or idea. And I asked the mom, who I got to be friends with by this point, I said, would you like to read a poem to your daughter in the bridge of the song? So she said, yeah, and we all went to the recording studio, spent a whole day there in the recording studio, laying down the tracks. The mother spoke the words to her daughter and this sort of thing. We had a press conference. Now, you got to remember, by this time, of course, by Christmas, news updates on this began to fade a lot. Media attention, they just don't do it during the holidays when it's been 6 months or so. So this really helped to reinvigorate by late January, early February when we did our press conference. It reinvigorated the entire search effort. Next thing you know, media is red hot. America's Most Wanted was on it once again. Fundraisers were going on. We're selling the song on cassettes to raise more money for more flyers and more mass mailings and this sort of things. So it really helped energize. I felt so good about my B-side did all that. And sadly, the song didn't find the girl. Months went by, years went by, and it was basically, it became one of those stories that, we may never know what happened. Well, that all changed in 2009, and you can't imagine what it was like for me when I got the phone call from the mother of this little girl saying they found her. And it was amazing. It was the girl's name was J.C. Lee Dugard, and many of us here in the States know this case. She was found after spending 18 years in captivity in the backyard of a home in Antioch, California. She bore 2 children with her kidnapper, and she was recovered. And she was recovered alive and is with her family now. And the joy that I felt from that mom saying, thank you for your song. It's what helped, get me through the last 18 years. Can you imagine that? That's the power of, I could have just sat on the song and just gave it to her and that'd be the end of it. But I decided to take it to the next level and B-side it. And JC has been living, free of captivity for 5 years, and it's now the most celebrated abduction recovery in history of the U.S. And I couldn't be more proud to have a small part, if nothing else, than just to make that mom and that family happy and help to reinvigorate the search effort when it did, all because of a B-side.
Wow, that's such a powerful story, and it also, the thing that really resonates with me is just, the power. A lot of people say, "Well, I'm just one person. What can I do?" And that's a perfect example of exactly what one person can do. And, and that's the whole premise of this show, is to connect all these people that united can do even more powerful things. But that is a fascinating story.
It's just reaching deep. I'll show you something that I live by, and it's in my book as well. I don't see if you can see it on camera here. It's called, well, I'll back it up. There we go. IDEA, which is identify, dedicate, execute, and action. And this is how I help people to really think of ways that you can take something to the next level. Take that song, flip that record over, dust it off, polish it up, and bring it more to the forefront. First, identify what it is that you want to work on. In my case, it was taking that song I wrote and bringing it to the next level. And then, of course, you dedicate yourself to it. You pour yourself into it, and don't give up. Don't let anything get in your way. And you start working on it. Execute is putting all the pieces together that you need to make it happen. When I contacted the recording studio, when I contacted the band, when I asked the mom to do the bridge of the song with a poem, and then of course action is putting it all together. And this is not, the acronym. Every book has to have an acronym, right?
Doesn't it?
the acronym might be unique and original to me, but it's based on, of all things, one of my heroes is Walt Disney. Walt Disney had a motto or a credo that he used to live by, and it was dream, believe, dare, and do. He would dream of something he wanted to do. He would dare himself to do it. He would believe in himself with all of his might that I'm going to get this done, and then he would just do or implement it. So dream, believe, dare, and do is just like you dream, you identify. You dream, you believe, you dedicate. You dare yourself, you execute. You do it, that's the action. So it's based on the same premise. Dream, believe, dare, and do that Walt Disney did. And now I wanted to introduce this to the world because now we can do it based on the universal language of music, something everybody can relate to. So just like a song, just think of everything in your life that you're doing as the next song in your catalog, in probably the best catalog of all, and that's the catalog known as life.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at things. So let me talk about your previous book was called Customer Service A to Z, and you had the foreword was written by Dick Clark. How did you get that to happen?
that was a fun situation. That's here we go. That's the Customer Service A to Z. There we go. That book was my second book, actually. My first book was on business management. What had happened is I became friends with Dick Clark back around 1995 when I first met him at a meet and greet, back when I was doing radio. Kind of a funny situation. I was in radio, part of the press corps, covering Dick Clark's American Bandstand live at Harvey's. It was a cabaret type show, and he was there, and I was there for the press meet and greet and this sort of thing. I met him. Came home and I was excited as heck, put a picture of my wall of me and him that I had. He's always been an idol of mine. And then about a year later, I discovered something that I never thought imaginable, is one of my MCs or announcers that was on my employee payroll for my entertainment company was related to him. He never told me. He never told me. One day I stumbled upon this. He says, yes, I'm related to Dick Clark, and that began the friendship between Dick Clark and I. And one thing led to another. We met on several occasions. We exchanged correspondences, and the next thing you know, I was just more of a friend than anything else. And my entertainment company would work for him. Down at his estate down in Malibu. I would handle weddings and different private functions, and thankfully I literally became the DJ and master ceremonies for all of Dick Clark's private functions. So that was
a gig. Good for you.
Yeah, it was. So back when I was down at his place back in 2010, I took my manuscript with me and I asked him if he would look it over. He loved to read. A lot of people don't know that Dick Clark loved to read. He loves reading books. And he looked over my manuscript, and it was all about customer service. And the thing about it that I think maybe resonated with him was it's customer service from a very traditional standpoint. Now, Dick's always been a very traditional guy. And, he's always been, the people would say squeaky clean, or etiquette, and great character and ethics that are sound, very sound. And this is what the book was about. It was about the taking customer service to the level of old traditional standards. And I think he really enjoyed that. And then he said he'd be delighted to write the foreword, and that's how that came to be. And we sure miss him. He passed in 2012. And we miss him every day, and I never stopped thinking about him. He was my mentor, my greatest inspiration.
Yeah, well, he was definitely a legend.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, this show goes so fast, and we're running out of time. If you could put one message out there to the entrepreneurs that are listening, what would that message be?
That would be develop your B-sides. That would be take things that are sitting on your low shelf of priority, things that you never thought would be interesting to the world, to your followers, to your fans, to your company, and give them a chance. You'd be surprised that the record executives chose songs for the B-side because it was their opinion that it wasn't going to become anything. But these songwriters, these artists, these people who rehearsed it, they never put less effort into a B-side song. It still received the same amount of hours recording and rehearsal and this sort of thing. They never thought any less of that. It was somebody else that looked at that record and said, nah, it's never going to work. And sure enough, a lot of these songs, there's hundreds of them, that became some of the biggest songs of all time, some of the defining songs of a generation. You've got things in your life and your business that you're sitting on, you're procrastinating on, you're putting it off to the side thinking, no one's going to like that. Let them be the judge. Pour into it. If you believe in it, if you thought it was a good idea, don't let that other voice in the back of your head saying, nah, I don't need to develop that. Develop it. Develop your B-sides. Take things that you have sitting on your lower shelf, flip that record over, polish them up, put that needle on it, and reintroduce them to the world.
Great philosophy. I love that. Larry.
Yeah.
So how can our viewers get a hold of you if they're interested in connecting with you?
Several ways. The book is available on Amazon, on paperback, or on Kindle. You can also direct order through me. My website is LarryPresents.com. That's LarryPresents.com. LarryPresents.com. You'll find avenues there where you can just click on the contact button, call me directly, email me directly, and we can do case orders, we can do single orders, any way you want to go on that. And of course, I'm available for public speaking as well, as I travel the country trying to share this message with as many people as possible.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much for being here with us, Larry. I really enjoyed interviewing you, and you're a lot of fun, and it brought me down memory lane talking about going to
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much, Mike. I wish you such great success with your show. It's an honor to be interviewed by you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I also want to thank our viewers for tuning in. You can also check us out on our website, Entrepreneurs Making a Difference. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much.